Okay, have you ever opened a math textbook and seen Moses? Yeah, probably not. But today we're diving into this really fascinating lesson that does exactly that. It blends a story about the ancient Israelites with the challenge of multiplying numbers in the millions. It's a wild combination, so let's figure out how and maybe why it works.
And that, right there, is the big question. A math worksheet is supposed to have numbers, equations, maybe some word problems about trains leaving a station. But Moses? So what's he doing in a lesson about long multiplication? Let's find out.
So at its heart, this is a lesson about multiplying really, really big numbers. But the thing that makes it so unique is the framing. Instead of just throwing equations at you, it builds this whole narrative to try and make these abstract millions and billions feel a little more, tangible.
And here it is, the lesson's big idea. It's using this grand historical scale, the idea of managing these massive herds of cattle, to ground the abstract concept of multiplying millions. It's a pretty creative way to give some real-world context to what would otherwise be a pure calculation.
All right, so here's the actual math problem at the heart of this whole thing. We've got the Israelites with a very specific number of cattle, 2,345,678. And the job is simple. Multiply that by 3. Sounds straightforward, but with numbers that big, you're going to need a system you can trust.
So how do you even tackle a number this huge without getting lost in all the digits? Well, the lesson relies on a very clear, step-by-step process. Let's walk through exactly how it's done.
The whole thing starts on the far right, with the ones column. First up, you do 8 times 3, which is 24. Simple enough? You write down the 4, and you carry the 2. That's that foundational first move.
Next, we just slide over one column to the left. We multiply 7 by 3, and that gives us 21. But, and this is so important, we can't forget that little 2 we carried over from the last step, so we add it on, giving us 23. Then you just write down the 3, carry the new 2, and you literally just keep repeating this exact process all the way down the line.
So, this step-by-step method, this repeatable process, it actually has a name. It's called a standardized algorithm. And the key thing to get here is that this isn't some cool math trick. It's a formal procedure that's designed to work every single time, no matter how ridiculously big the numbers get. The real lesson isn't just getting the right answer. It's learning to trust the system itself. And after you apply that algorithm all the way through, from right to left, boom, there's our answer. The Israelites now have over 7 million cattle. The system worked perfectly. It took what looked like a really intimidating problem and just broke it down into a bunch of simple, manageable steps. Okay, so the method worked once, but does it hold up with different kinds of numbers? The true test of any algorithm is its versatility. So now we're going to look at the homework problems from the source material and see how this system handles some new and even bigger challenges.
All right, the first homework challenge tests the algorithm with a big round number. Multiplying by 1,000. Well, it feels like there should be a shortcut, right? So this is a great test. Does the formal method still hold up? Or do you need a different approach?
And there's the answer. Turns out, whether you apply the full step-by-step algorithm or you use the mental shortcut of just adding 3 zeros at the end, you get the exact same result. The system is consistent. It works.
The next challenge is a little more straightforward, but just bigger. We're now multiplying hundreds of millions by 4. So does that same step-by-step process still work perfectly when the numbers get this large?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The result is almost 1 billion, but the process of getting there was identical. Multiply, carry, repeat. The scale of the number changes, but the method itself stays exactly the same. That's the beauty of it.
And now it's time for what I like to call the final boss of the homework. Multiplying by 9,999. Now this is designed to be tricky. You've got lots of carrying, multiple rows of calculation. It is the ultimate stress test for this whole system.
And look at that result. Over 5 billion. Even this super complex-looking problem just breaks down neatly when you apply the algorithm. And that is the core lesson here. Once you have a reliable system, the size of the numbers almost doesn't matter. You have a tool that can handle anything.
So we've seen the how this whole thing works, but let's circle all the way back to the why. Why frame a math lesson with Moses and the Israelites to begin with? Well, the final part of this lesson connects that mathematical concept back to a deeper, more thematic point.
The lesson wraps up with this Bible verse. The idea here, from a teaching perspective, seems to be linking the mathematical concept of huge, almost unimaginable numbers to a spiritual concept of immeasurable power or potential. It's the intended final thought for the student to walk away with.
Which kind of leaves us with this one big question to chew on, right? Does taking something as technical as multiplication and wrapping it up in this huge ancient story actually help students learn? Does it make all these abstract numbers feel more real, more meaningful? Or is it just a weird distraction? It's a really fascinating question about how we teach and maybe more importantly, how our brains are wired to learn.